We're talking about the analysis in the New York Times this morning. There was an article written saying that President Trump is getting what he wants from these clashes in Los Angeles over immigration and immigration raids. Why? Why does he feel that way? With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten. So let's unpack that a little bit. The issue of immigration. How is President Trump seen as doing on that?
Yeah, if we just take a look at the baseline numbers here, this is Trump's net approval rating on immigration. It's gone up like a rocket. Compare now versus 8 years ago during Trump's first term. Look at this. In his first term, Trump was way underwater at minus 21 points. But look at this. He's up over 20 points. Now, in the aggregate, he is in positive territory at plus 1 point on his net approval rating. Some other polls even have it a little bit higher than that. There is no issue on which Trump is doing so much better than he was in his first term, more than the issue of immigration. No wonder the Times has written up the way that he is. Trump is begging for a fight on this because he knows what he's doing so far is working with the American electorate.
Where does immigration rank on issues for him? How is he doing compared to others?
Yeah, so I think what's so important is it is his top issue so far. And the reason it is his top issue is because take a look at the individual nuggets in here. Why are people approving of Trump on immigration, approve of these different immigration actions while Trump's administration's program to deport those here illegally? Look at this, 54% approval. How about agents searching your hometown for those that they think are here illegally? Again, positive territory here, above 50% for Donald Trump. So it's not just on the broad issue of immigration where Trump is doing well, it's on the specifics. When you dive into the issues, Trump is above 50% and his actions are above 50%, at least with those most directly connected to what's going on right now out in Los Angeles.
So Donald Trump, the president, picking a fight on this, and to an extent, you see Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, a Democrat, and the California Governor Gavin Newsom pushing back. So what do voters see in terms of their perceptions of Republicans, the president, or Democrats, say Gavin Newsom, on this issue?
Yeah, the American electorate believe that the Democrats don't have a clue on the issue of immigration. I mean, you could just take it here. Closer to trust more in immigration, Democrats versus Republicans. Got 3 different polls for you across the board. They all tell the same story. Republicans lead on the issue of immigration. You see it here, CBS plus 6. You see it here, CNN plus 6. You see it here, Ipsos, even bigger, plus 19. No matter what poll you look at, no matter which way you cut it, the American public is with the Republicans, the American public is with Donald Trump, and to a much greater extent than they were in term number 1. And it's not just on the broad issue of immigration, it's on the specifics as well, in which the American public is with Donald Trump and the Republicans. And that is why Donald Trump is eager to take on this fight and eager for those scenes out of Los Angeles.
I was just going to use that word eager. This explains some of that eagerness to push forward ever more on this as it escalates. Harry Enten, thank you very much.
The group chat, CNN politics senior reporter Stephen Collinson, Republican strategist and CNN political commentator Brad Todd, and CNN contributor Lulu Garcia Navarro. I was talking during the break about whether or not this is still an immigration story, sort of how we're thinking about this moment. Can I kind of open it to you guys?
This is a very perilous moment because what we're seeing here is a fight that President Trump wants to have.
Meaning with blue states.
With blue states,
yeah.
About immigration, about the rule of law and the way that he views it, and also using the threat of military force in a way that we haven't seen in this country, federal military force. I mean, there's discussion of deploying Marines for what is a civil disturbance. This should be of concern, I think, to many, many people in this country. And so I think the context is that, yes, this is about immigration enforcement. Los Angeles is a city where 50% almost are Latinos. The people who have been protesting, peacefully protesting, I'm not talking about the violent protesters here. Violence should never be something that's condoned. But the people who have been peacefully protesting, sometimes they're first, second generation Latinos who are worried about this kind of immigration enforcement. Yeah. And so, this is a complicated issue.
And something we heard earlier, I think in a piece of tape, was a protester saying every moment that we're out here, they're not, he said, in our communities doing raids, et cetera. Brad, what are you thinking?
Well, we got to this moment because California has a sanctuary policy. The state law forbids local law enforcement from cooperating with, or local government from cooperating with immigration enforcement. We have immigration laws that govern the entire land, and California is willfully ignoring them. California's left-wing politicians set this up. If California had long been cooperating and helping enforce immigration laws all along the way, this would not be.
It's not the whole state. You do know that some of this is jurisdictions. There are certain towns that do. Yeah, but there are certain
state law.
But there are certain towns that absolutely have cooperated with federal authorities.
Shouldn't they all?
You know, this is part of the issue that is always interesting here is when Republicans want to talk about states' rights. It's about states' rights when it is something that they're interested in, and not when it is something that perhaps Democrats and their states are interested in. And so I think.
But we've all agreed on what immigration laws are.
Well, hold on.
There's not a state. There's not a state.
We're going to talk about this more in the hour. I want to bring in
law.
Stephen because there is something you mentioned earlier about militarization. We're going to come back to your point. But having Marines waiting in the wings is pretty wild because this is not the LA riot so far, not what I remember growing up with. And
Steve, once
but
the
hold
president.
on one second, Brad. So Stephen brought up this thing saying that the president's not just demonstrating his desire to militarize the crackdown on undocumented migrants, but also implying to use it against protest and dissent. Is that what you see when you look at these images?
I think that's the imagery that the administration is creating. The president tweeted in the middle of the night or posted on Truth Social or whatever it is now, bring in the troops. He wants us to have that imagery of troops on the streets, I think.
But that's because people are seeing this imagery, right? I mean, if you look at the cover of the Post today, dozens of thugs arrested as First National Guard troops.
That is,
Gavin Newsom wants it too.
Yeah,
Gavin
I think
Newsom
you're right.
absolutely wants it.
That comment he said that we saw about him, potentially being arrested, he clearly wants this political
peacocking to
fight
try to become
as well. I mean, there's a lot of
national figure.
peacocking going on, but from the administration's point of view, Trump was elected on a mandate of strong border policy. He sees that. He wants to push that as far as he can. He's sending a message to other Democratic states who he believes do not cooperate with the administration.
To their leaders or to people who might try and protest in the streets?
How do you mean exactly?
The message he's sending.
Yeah, but I think to that point I made in the story, and to your point about the Marines, this is a dangerous moment. The idea of American active troops even being talked about on the street. I remember I was in New Orleans after the hurricane. You had the 82nd Airborne there, and they were there on a much different mission, but seeing American active duty troops on a combat patrol walking through the streets of an American city is a chilling image, and I've worked in a lot of countries where that is the case. And it's not something you really want to bring on.
The way to avoid that is for California law enforcement to work with immigration authorities.
But is it okay that it's been raised?
No one wants it, but I will note that once the president said he might mobilize the National Guard, the LAPD suddenly got interested in stopping the demonstration.
Okay.
It took that kind of a threat to get LAPD to do their job.